General Krex'thul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Render, admiring his reflection in the polished chrome walls. At 8 feet tall, with 4 arms, and what could generously be called a face that looked like someone had stepped on a lizard, he cut an impressive figure. Well, impressive to other Vorthak anyway. Behold, he announced to his bridge crew, gesturing dramatically with all 4 appendages, the mighty armada of the galactic dominion. 1,000 ships, each bristling with enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Is there any force in this pathetic galaxy that could stand against us? His subordinates made appropriate grunting sounds of agreement. This was largely because disagreeing with Krex'thul usually resulted in being fed to his pet space slugs, which was both messy and uncomfortable for everyone involved. The Vorthak had spent the last 3 centuries conquering every species they encountered. Their secret? They were really good at being scary. Most civilizations took one look at their ships, which resembled angry metal spiders having a bad day, and immediately surrendered. It was efficient, cost-effective, and saved everyone a lot of paperwork. "Sir," squeaked Lieutenant Blakes, "the ship's communications officer, we're detecting an approaching vessel." Krex'thul's chest swelled with pride. Another species ready to grovel before his magnificence on screen. Let's see what pathetic excuse for a civilization dares to enter our space. The view screen flickered to life, showing a single ship approaching their armada. Krex'thul blinked, then blinked again, then wondered if someone had spiked his morning nutrient paste with hallucinogens. The ship looked like someone had taken a construction site and launched it into space. It was roughly cylindrical, painted in faded yellow and orange stripes, with what appeared to be actual scaffolding bolted to the hull. Several pieces of heavy machinery were visible through transparent sections, and the whole thing had the aesthetic appeal of a flying tool shed. What in the 7 hells of Vorthak Prime is that supposed to be? Krex'thul demanded. Unknown, sir. Our computers are having trouble classifying it. The closest match is construction equipment. Krex'thul's 4 eyes narrowed. Impossible. No species would dare approach our fleet in a work vehicle. This must be some sort of psychological warfare. Perhaps it's a Trojan horse scenario. Sir, they're hailing us. Of course they are. Patch them through. I shall enjoy hearing their terrified pleas for mercy. The screen shifted to show the interior of the strange ship. A human male sat in what looked like the cab of an earth mover, complete with worn leather seats and a dashboard covered in coffee stains. He was maybe 50 years old, with graying hair and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd spent most of his life squinting at things that needed fixing. "Howdy," the human said, taking a sip from a styrofoam cup. "Name's Jake Murphy. You folks mind moving your ships? I've got a construction deadline to meet." The bridge of the Void Render fell silent. In 3 centuries of conquest, no one had ever opened negotiations by asking them to get out of the way. "I am General Krex'thul of the Galactic Dominion," he thundered, drawing himself up to his full height. "You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." Jake looked unimpressed. "Yeah, that's nice. Listen, I really do need you to move. I'm building an orbital platform for the humans over on Kepler 442 billion. And your ships are right in my construction zone. It's a safety hazard." Krex'thul stared at the human for a full 10 seconds, his brain struggling to process what he'd just heard. Did you just call my armada a safety hazard?" "Well, yeah. OSHA regulations clearly state that all construction zones must be free of unauthorized vessels. You don't have work permits for this sector, do you?" "Well, work permits?" Krex'thul's voice rose to a pitch that made several bridge officers wince. "I am the terror of 1,000 worlds. I have crushed entire civilizations beneath my heel. I don't need work permits." Jake nodded sympathetically. "I get it, friend. Nobody likes dealing with bureaucracy. But rules are rules. Tell you what, though. If you move your ships about 50 clicks spinward, I can probably finish up here in 6 hours. Then this whole sector is yours to terrorize or whatever." Lieutenant Blakes leaned over to another officer. Is he negotiating with the general like he's a traffic cop?" "I think so," whispered back Commander Thyksex. "Should we be taking notes?" This might be important for our psychological warfare division. Krex'thul's face cycled through several shades of purple. Human, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This is not a negotiation. This is conquest. You will submit to the might of the Vorthak Empire or be destroyed. Conquest? Jake chuckled and took another sip of coffee. Son, the only thing you're conquering today is my patience. I've got concrete that needs pouring in 3 hours, and your light show is going to throw off my schedule. Light show? Krex'thul sputtered. Yeah, all those flashy weapons and dramatic poses. Very entertaining. We've been watching your broadcasts for years. Great stuff. My wife loves that show where you threaten the fish people. What's it called? Krex'thul's Conquest Chronicles. Emmy-worthy writing, really. The bridge fell dead silent. Several officers began making subtle hand gestures that roughly translated to "oh crap. Oh crap, we're all going to die." You've been watching our conquests? Krex'thul asked slowly. Oh sure. Earth picked up your transmissions about 15 years ago. Thought it was some kind of really elaborate science fiction show. The special effects are incredible. How do you make those energy weapons look so realistic? Krex'thul felt something inside his chest that he'd never experienced before. It took him a moment to identify it as embarrassment. Those aren't special effects. Those are actual weapons of mass destruction. Really? Jake sounded genuinely impressed. Wow. Well, that explains why the Neptunian fishing fleet always surrenders so fast. I thought it was just good acting. The what now? The Neptunians. You know, episode 47, Surrender of the Deep Swimmers. Classic television. Although I have to say, your dialogue's gotten a bit repetitive lately. Maybe consider hiring some new writers. Commander Thykes leaned over to Blix. Are we a television show? I think we might be. Blix whispered back. This explains so much about our ratings. Krex'thul rallied his composure. Enough. Human, your species' ignorance will be your downfall. Prepare to witness the true power of the Vorthak war machine. All right, Jake said agreeably. But like I said, I've got work to do. So, if we're going to do this whole space battle thing, can we keep it under 6 hours? I promised my wife I'd be home for dinner, and she gets cranky when I'm late. Krex'thul raised all 4 arms dramatically. Fire at will. Show this primitive species the fury of the Dominion. The Void Render and its escort ships opened fire with enough energy to vaporize a small asteroid. Brilliant beams of concentrated plasma streaked across space toward Jake's ramshackle construction vessel. The beams struck the human ship and did absolutely nothing. Well, not nothing exactly. They seemed to bounce off some kind of energy barrier, creating pretty light shows that reflected harmlessly into space. Jake said, glancing at his instruments. That's weird. My coffee's vibrating. You folks generating some kind of electromagnetic interference? Krex'thul's jaw dropped so far it practically unhinged. Impossible. Our weapons can crack planetary crusts. How are your shields absorbing that much energy? Shields? Jake looked confused. Oh, you mean the containment field? Yeah, that's just to keep the concrete dust from drifting into space during mixing. Environmental protection, you know. Can't have construction debris floating around the galaxy. Your construction equipment is shielded against planetary bombardment. Well, sure. You ever try to pour concrete in a vacuum? Without proper containment, you'd have cement everywhere. Makes a real mess. Lieutenant Blix frantically ran calculations on his console. Sir, their defensive systems are deflecting 100% of our weapons' fire. Energy absorption rate is, well, it's impossible, sir. Krex'thul's left eye began to twitch. Fine. If conventional weapons won't work, we'll show them what real Vorthak ingenuity looks like. Deploy the Devastator torpedoes. A spread of missiles, each the size of a small shuttle, streaked toward Jake's ship. These weren't just weapons. They were statements. Each torpedo contained enough antimatter to level a city. Jake watched them approach with the mild interest of someone observing a particularly slow freight train. Rosa, you seeing this? A female voice crackled over the con. There's... Yeah, Jake. Looks like they're throwing some kind of fireworks at us. Want me to swat them? If you don't mind. I'm trying to finish this concrete calculation. Something emerged from the side of Jake's ship. It looked like a cement mixer, except it was the size of a city bus and mounted on what appeared to be a modified crane arm. The mixer rotated toward the incoming torpedoes and began launching basketball-sized projectiles at a rate of about 6 per second. "What the hell is that thing shooting?" Commander Krex'thul demanded. "Concrete pellets," Jake replied helpfully. "Rosa's using the emergency mixer to clear debris, standard construction protocol." The concrete pellets, traveling at approximately 3,000 meters per second, intercepted every single torpedo with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker having a very good day. The antimatter weapons exploded harmlessly against the solid concrete, creating spectacular but ultimately useless light shows. "Impossible," Krex'thul whispered. "Those were devastator torpedoes. They've never failed to penetrate enemy defenses." "Well," Rosa's voice came over the comm. "They'd probably work fine against military targets, but you're basically throwing firecrackers at construction equipment. This stuff's built to withstand industrial accidents. You ever seen what happens when a fusion generator hiccups next to a concrete mixer? Now that's exciting." Jake nodded agreement. "Rosa's right. This old girl's been through worse than your light show. Remember that job on Titan where the methane plant exploded?" "Don't remind me," Rosa replied. "Took 3 weeks to get the smell out of the ventilation system." Krex'thul looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments with expressions of growing panic. His weapons, the pride of the Vorthak military, were being casually dismissed by what appeared to be a flying construction site. "Sir," Blake said quietly, "perhaps we should consider alternative strategies." "Alternative strategies?" Krex'thul roared. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We don't have alternative strategies. We have bigger guns." "About that," Jake interjected. "I hate to interrupt, but are you folks planning to keep shooting? Because I really do need to get this concrete poured, and all these explosions are throwing off my measurements." Krex'thul paced back and forth across his bridge, his forearms gesticulating wildly. "This is intolerable. Deploy psychological warfare protocols that break their morale with the sacred war chants of Vorthak." The ship's speakers crackled to life with what sounded like a combination of dying whales and rusty machinery having an argument. The traditional Vorthak battle hymns had struck fear into the hearts of countless species across the galaxy. Jake listened for about 10 seconds, then shook his head. "Okay, that's just painful. Rosa, fire up the work music." "You got it, boss." Suddenly the comm channels filled with the opening chords of "Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. Steve Perry's voice echoed across the vacuum of space, singing about small-town girls and city boys taking midnight trains to anywhere. The effect on the Vorthak fleet was immediate and devastating. Bridge officers began clutching their heads. Several ships reported navigation errors as their crews became inexplicably emotional about their life choices. "What is this sonic weapon?" Krex'thul demanded, trying to cover his ears with all 4 hands. "Sonic weapon?" Jake looked genuinely puzzled. "It's just Journey. Classic rock. Good work music. Keeps the crew motivated during long pause." Commander Krex'thul was swaying slightly to the rhythm. His eyes glazed over. "Sir, I'm having strange feelings about my youth. And I think I want to take a midnight train somewhere." "Resist the human mind control," Krex'thul ordered. But his voice lacked its usual authority. The music was doing something to his brain, making him think about roads not taken and chances not seized. Rosa's voice cut through the music. "Jake, while they're processing their emotional baggage, I'm going to give their fleet a quick inspection. This formation is a disaster waiting to happen." "Go for it, Rosa. Safety first." Rosa's voice switched to an open channel, audible to the entire Vorthak fleet. "Attention alien vessels. This is Lieutenant Martinez, former construction foreman and current safety inspector. I've been observing your fleet formation, and I have some concerns." She cleared her throat with the authority of someone who'd spent 30 years telling people they were doing their jobs wrong. First, your spacing is completely inadequate. OSHA Standard 1926.95 clearly states that vessels operating in formation must maintain minimum safe distances. Your current configuration violates at least 6 safety protocols. Several Vorthak ship commanders looked nervously out their viewports, suddenly aware of how close they were to their neighbors. Second, your weapon placement shows a fundamental misunderstanding of ergonomic design. Those gun positions are going to give your crews repetitive stress injuries. I've seen better layouts on construction cranes from the 1970s. Lieutenant Blix found himself nodding agreement. She's not wrong, sir. Gunner Station 3 has been complaining about back pain for months. Third, Rosa continued, her voice taking on the tone of a disappointed teacher. Your hull design is a maintenance nightmare. All those spikes and dramatic curves, good luck cleaning space dust out of those crevices. And don't get me started on the accessibility issues. How are your repair crews supposed to reach external systems without proper safety railings? Krex'thul watched in horror as his subordinates began taking notes. Stop listening to her, he commanded. She's using some form of human construction hypnosis. Sir, Commander Thike said tentatively, she raises valid points about workplace safety. Remember what happened to the death scream last month? 3 crew members fell into the reactor core because there weren't proper guardrails around the ceremonial sacrifice pit. That was a feature, not a bug, Krex'thul protested weakly. Rosa wasn't finished. And finally, this whole dramatic intimidation approach to space combat is just inefficient. You're wasting energy on unnecessary weapon flourishes and theatrical posturing. A good construction crew could teach you the value of getting the job done quickly and safely. The journey song reached its crescendo, and across the Vorthak fleet, the hardened warriors found themselves singing along to lyrics about not stopping believing and holding on to feelings. It was the most psychologically devastating attack in the history of galactic warfare, and the humans didn't even know they were fighting. Krex'thul slumped in his command chair, watching his mighty armada slowly lose its collective mind to classic rock and construction safety lectures. This wasn't how Conquest was supposed to go. Where was the fear? The desperate pleas for mercy? The satisfying surrender of inferior species? Human, he said, his voice hollow with defeat. What are you? Jake looked up from his concrete calculations. What am I? Construction foreman, mostly. Well, retired now. The wife says I needed a hobby, so I got into orbital platform construction. Turns out there's good money in it, and the commute's not bad once you get used to the whole space thing. No, Krex'thul shook his head. What is your species? Your ship withstands our most powerful weapons. Your psychological warfare breaks our crew's minds. Your tactical officer critiques our formations with devastating accuracy. Are you some kind of advanced warrior race? Jake laughed, a sound that somehow made the situation even more surreal. Warriors? Buddy, we're construction workers. This isn't even a military ship. It's the Hard Hat, my old orbital construction platform. I converted a few cargo holds into living space, upgraded the life support, and boom, interstellar RV. But your shields. Containment fields for concrete mixing. You ever try to pour a foundation in zero gravity? It's complicated. But your weapons. Safety equipment. Rosa's mixer there can clear debris, sure, but mainly it's for making concrete. The other tools are for cutting steel beams, welding joints, that sort of thing. Krex'thul felt something fundamental crack inside his worldview. Then, why aren't you afraid of us? Jake considered this seriously. Well, I suppose I should be, but honestly. You folks remind me of the safety inspectors back on Earth, lots of noise and bluster. But when push comes to shove, mostly harmless. Plus, I've been watching your show for years, hard to be scared of someone when you've seen their blooper reel. Blooper reel? Oh yeah. Earth's been intercepting all your communications, the stuff that doesn't make it into the main broadcasts. Like that time you tripped over your ceremonial cape during the conquest of the slug people. A classic physical comedy. The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle background hum of Don't Stop Believin' still playing on repeat. Several officers were quietly humming along. Krex'thul's world collapsed. His mighty empire, the terror of 1,000 worlds, was a television show. His fearsome conquests were entertainment for a species that built things for a living. His psychological warfare was being defeated by power ballads and workplace safety recommendations. So all this time, he said slowly, humans have been watching us like a comedy show. Well, not just comedy. There's drama too, some real emotional moments. That episode where you had to mercy kill your pet battle slug. Emmy material, right there. Krex'thul stood up, swayed slightly, and then did something no Vorthak general had done in 3 centuries of conquest. He fell to his knees. Please, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the music. I surrender. I'll serve you, just spare my life, spare my fleet. We didn't know we were just entertainment. Jake looked genuinely concerned. Hey now, no need for all that drama. You folks aren't in any danger from me. I'm just trying to build a platform. Though I have to say, this whole surrender thing is probably going to get great ratings back on Earth. You're not going to destroy us. Destroy you? Why would I do that? I'm a construction worker, not a demolition expert. Those are completely different unions. Lieutenant Blakes looked up from his console. Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. They're asking if we need assistance dealing with the human threat. Jake raised an eyebrow. Human threat? That's new. Usually they just ask about our construction permits. Krex'thul remained on his knees, processing the implications. The Council knows about humans? Oh sure, Jake replied. We've been doing contract work for them for about 5 years now. Built that new space station around Proxima Centauri. Renovated the diplomatic complex on Kepler 22 billion. Good clients, pay on time. They mentioned you folks might be in the area, said to give you their regards. The final piece of Krex'thul's dignity crumbled. The Galactic Council, the civilization that had hired humans for construction projects, it had been politely tolerating the Vorthak Empire's existence while using humanity's superior technology for public works. I'll serve you, he repeated desperately. Just please, don't tell them how easily you defeated us. Jake scratched his head and looked at the kneeling alien general with the expression of a man who'd come to fix a leaky pipe and accidentally become mayor. Look, General, is it? I appreciate the offer, but I'm not really in the market for servants. I've got a crew of 2, and that's plenty for most jobs. Please, Krex'thul begged. I have nowhere else to go. If word gets out that the mighty Vorthak Empire was defeated by a construction worker, we'll be the laughingstock of the galaxy. My own subordinates will probably feed me to the space slugs. Rosa's voice crackled over the con. Jake, you might want to consider it. This fleet's got serious management issues. We could use some proper supervision. Rosa, I'm serious. Look at their formation, their safety protocols, their complete lack of workplace efficiency. It's a humanitarian crisis waiting to happen. Jake sighed the deep sigh of a man who'd spent his life cleaning up other people's messes. All right, General. Here's the deal. I'll accept your surrender, but we're doing this my way. That means proper safety protocols, reasonable work schedules, and no more of this terror of the galaxy nonsense. Can you handle that? Krex'thul nodded so eagerly his head nearly fell off. Yes, absolutely. Whatever you command. First thing, we're reorganizing this fleet. Rosa, start running efficiency evaluations on their ships. I want full safety inspections, ergonomic assessments, and proper workplace injury reports. You got it, boss. This is going to be fun. Over the next several hours, the transformation of the Vorthak fleet was remarkable to behold. Rosa moved from ship to ship like a one-woman OSHA invasion, pointing out safety violations and suggesting improvements. The fearsome spikes were removed and replaced with proper handrails. The dramatic weapon arrangements were reorganized for better crew access. The intimidating red lighting was replaced with standard workplace illumination that wouldn't give anyone headaches. Krex'thul followed Jake around like an oversized, 4-armed puppy, frantically taking notes on proper management techniques. The key, Jake explained as he supervised the installation of safety barriers around the Void Render's reactor core. Is treating your crew like people instead of expendable resources. Happy workers are productive workers. But what about instilling fear and obedience through ritual sacrifice? Krex'thul asked hopefully. We'll substitute performance reviews and quarterly evaluations. Much more effective, and nobody has to get fed to space slugs. By the end of the day, the Vorthak fleet looked less like a collection of flying death machines and more like a well-organized construction company that happened to work in space. Productivity was up 40%, workplace injuries were down to 0, and crew morale had improved dramatically. Sir, Lieutenant Blix reported, the fleet is ready for your inspection. Jake nodded approvingly as he walked through the Void Render's corridors. The walls had been repainted in cheerful yellow and blue, safety posters were prominently displayed, and every doorway had proper clearance markings. It looked like a completely different ship. Not bad for a day's work, he said. Rosa, how's that platform coming along? The concrete's setting nicely. Should be ready for the next phase tomorrow. Jake pulled out his communication device, an ancient-looking thing that probably predated half the technology on the Vorthak ships. Hey honey, it's me. Yeah, I know I'm late. Well, funny story actually. I sort of accidentally conquered an alien empire. No, it's not as exciting as it sounds. Mostly just reorganizing their management structure and updating their safety protocols. He paused, listening to his wife's response. What? Oh, the general. Yeah, he's fine, a bit dramatic. But he's learning. I think he'll make a decent foreman once we get him trained properly. Krex'thul beamed with pride at being called decent foreman material. Anyway, I should be home by Thursday, assuming no more alien fleets show up wanting to surrender to our superior construction techniques. Love you too, Martha. See you soon. Jake ended the call and looked around at his new, extremely overqualified construction crew. Well, gentlemen, tomorrow we start Phase 2 of the orbital platform project. I hope you're ready to learn about proper concrete curing techniques. The former terror of the galaxy saluted enthusiastically. We live to serve. Construction foreman Murphy. Just Jake is fine, General. We're all equals here. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the Galactic Council received a routine construction update that would become legendary. Platform construction proceeding on schedule, and a delay due to fleet reorganization, but previous management issues resolved through proper workplace safety implementation. No casualties reported,